and welcome to another episode of Dwayne and Nidia's kitchen. And today we're going to make something that's perfect for a fall or for a winter day. And today, and I'll show you in a little bit, it's snowing. If you live here in Massachusetts, you know you wait a few minutes and the weather's different. That's what everyone says. Well, I'm telling you, it was in the 60s yesterday and I woke up this morning and it was snowing and it's still snowing. So it's a very, very strange weekend, at least weather-wise. Anyway, I'm going to be making a creamy tomato basil bisque. Perfect soup for the winter and perfect for a great meal, maybe paired with a nice grilled cheese, you know, like you did when you were a kid, when you would dunk the grilled cheese into a nice tomato soup. Well, this is a creamy tomato basil bisque. It's extremely easy to make. I'm actually going to make quite a big batch, so I will tell you how much I use of everything. And for those of you who don't need to make enough to share with your neighbors, for example, you may want to half this recipe so that you can make it more for just 3 or 4 people. Depends on the portion size though, right? Okay. So I'm going to show you first what the ingredients are that you'll need to make this soup. I think most of you have a lot of these things in your pantry, and if not, they're very easy to find. And I will meet you back where I'm showing you what we need to make it. So these are the ingredients, and I will go over them one by one. I think most of you are very familiar with these things and that you have a lot of them in your pantry. First, 2, I guess I would call those medium-ish to large, no, medium-ish onions. I have a white onion and a yellow onion here. I don't need to use fresh tomatoes, but I have some that I actually need to use in the next day or two because I've had them for a while. So I am going to throw those in. You don't have to. It's optional. But if you do have tomatoes you want to get rid of, go ahead and use it. I have some basil, fresh basil or medium fresh. It's the kind you buy like this. They didn't have the type that comes on the stem like the real fresh herbs, but they had this. This keeps fresh for 4 weeks, but I'm going to use that. I'm going to use some heavy cream, 1 large 25-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, any brand, and then 4 cans of fire roasted diced tomatoes. I mix and match. Some of them have garlic and some of them have onion, but it really doesn't matter. I like the fire roasted flavor. And I like the crushed tomatoes. I'm going to augment those with the real tomatoes like I have mentioned. I'm going to use minced garlic because you know I don't like having to chop garlic all the time. A little bit of olive oil. And then I'm going to use some chicken broth. If you have your own chicken stock, that's outstanding. If you don't have to be a hero. Buy the chicken stock from the store is fine. I'm going to go and chop up my veggies and then I'll meet you back at the stove. Okay. So I threw my chopped onions here. I put the olive oil at the bottom, drizzled it, let it get to medium-high heat, and tossed in the 2 chopped onions, like that. And in about 5 to 7 or 8 minutes, it will start to get clear and caramelized a bit. It's happening now. Like I said, I didn't use too much oil. You might have to judge whether or not when you do it, you drizzled enough. A little goes a long way with olive oil though. And I'll get you a close-up shot of what the onions look like. All right, so the onions and the olive oil are here. I actually think it needs a little more of the olive oil. So let me give it a little drizzle. I do want the onions to become translucent. All right, so you can see the onions are getting soft. They're getting soft. I can feel it when I push down and stir them. Okay, so I do believe we are soft enough now for the next phase. I am going to add 4 teaspoons of minced garlic, the kind that comes bottled in water. It's nice and minced. If you want to use fresh garlic, it's about 8 diced cloves for a pot this size. If you're doing, of course, the half recipe, it would be about 4 cloves. And I'm going to stir that here with the onions now. Ooh, it smells heavenly. For about, let's just say a minute or 2, closer to 2. So you really want that onion, garlic, kind of want to marry the onion and the garlic together in that pot. All right, now that the onion and the garlic has been sauteing for a few minutes, I'm going to pour in about 2 cups of chicken broth. 2 cups. I'm taking it from a very large container. Looks to be about 2 cups. You know me, I'm not Miss Exact, but certainly feel free to measure out the 2 cups. This is what it looks like with my approximation of 2 cups. I may add a little bit more, just a dash. Oh, maybe a little more. I'm making a lot of soup, folks. So about 2 cups. If you're making a huge pot and you don't mind the freewheeling it on the ingredients, kind of like my grandmom and mom like to cook, then it might be closer to 2.5 cups or so. And we'll let that go just for a little bit. All right. So after you've put the chicken broth in, now it's time for the fire roasted diced tomatoes. I am adding 4 15-ounce cans. Stirring it up in here. There we go. This is can number 3. Can number 4. Stir that up. And now I'm going to get the tomatoes that I diced a little bit sooner, and I'm going to put them in here with the diced canned tomatoes as well. Okay, and here goes the chopped, I gave it a rough quarter chop to each of the Roma tomatoes. I did salt the tomatoes a little bit for a few minutes before I put them in here, just to kind of bring out those juices. You can see what this is looking like now. And now it's time for the crushed tomatoes. So yes, I am making a huge batch of tomato basil soup, and I have just added a 28-ounce can of the crushed, any brand. Let's let this go for just a few minutes. Looks good. Now that the tomatoes are pretty much all here in the pot, it's time to add a little of our spices. I didn't mention these in the beginning, but it's a staple. You're going to need some salt. I would say you're going to need about a teaspoon or so. Everyone's tastes are different. And I'm going to put some black pepper. I like bold flavors. I'm going to come back and do a final tasting on this before the end. Just notice you can actually see me if I do this. But yeah, so here's what it looks like. I'm going to let this go for a little bit, and then I'm showing you next how we start to build upon this tomatoey mass and turn it into a bisque. Okay, so now we have our salt and our pepper, which we have added to the onion, garlic, and an array of tomatoes. And what we have to do now is we need to let it sit here on the stove and simmer uncovered for about 10 or 15 minutes. Letting this simmer at this point really allows for the breakdown of both the tomatoes, the onions, and the garlic, and that's exactly what we want to do. So I have it on just a little bit higher than low, not quite medium, so it's like a medium low. And I'm going to let this stay here for, like I said, about 15 minutes or until it gets into a nice slow simmer. It's simmering. Melding. It's looking better. Simmering away, almost ready for adding the basil. Adding the basil. Wow, it is simmering away now, and it is beginning to break down, so I think this is the perfect spot for the next step. Just 1 second, and I'll show you what that is. Okay, so it's been simmering now for about 15 or so minutes, breaking down the tomato, the garlic, and the onion. Everything is super soft and nice. I am turning off the heat. And now that the heat is turned off, I am adding 2 full teaspoons of this fresh basil. You can use dry basil. If you like it really basil-y, like I do, throw in an extra pinch. And for the next step, let's incorporate that basil. You know, I'm in the basil mood. I'm going to add, over and above the 2 and a smidge, about a half teaspoon more. Remember, this is to your taste. So you're going to taste this once you finish. You can use fresh basil leaves, just cut them small. You can use what I bought with the fresh basil that is already cut up. You can also use dried basil. Use what you like. You can't ruin this. And now you can see that the basil is incorporated in here. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab my emulsifying, as you can see, emulsifying Smart Stick Cuisinart blender. And I am going to puree this stuff down. And you can, I've just realized I have to shut it off. I have to shut it off if you want to hear me, but you can use this and make it as smooth or as chunky as you like. The texture is in your control. I like it smooth, so I'm going to do it. If you don't have one of these emulsifying Cuisinart type of blenders, you can certainly take the contents of the pot and throw it in a regular blender with a glass jar. Just make sure to open the top as you're whipping it so you don't create a vacuum bubble. But puree it in a blender or use this emulsifying under, I was going to say underwater, but it's really under soup blender. Still using it, getting it as creamy as I can. So it's all set. And look, I got it to a smooth, even, consistent creaminess. Pretty much got all the chunks out of there. If you like it more chunky, don't over blend it. If you like it smooth like this, then definitely use this emulsifier or throw it in the blender and get all the Okay, and now for the almost finished step. Look how smooth. I can't tell you how great this looks. Now you're going to add 1 cup of heavy cream. This is a 1 pint container, so I'm going to add about half of this container. I can see the liquid line on it. A little more. There we go. That is looking amazing. Smelling amazing. All right, so this is what it looks like now that we have added the cream. I'm grabbing a spoon. I'm stirring it a little bit, and I'm going to do what I call my final tasting. And this is when you taste it and you decide whether it's on the money for your taste and flavor profile, or if it needs a little salt, a little pepper, a little more basil. Some people like some red pepper flake. I'm going to take this little sip. It's really hot. For me, it needs salt. I am adding some salt. For me, it needs pepper. I am adding a couple dashes of hot sauce. For me, it needs a little Italian seasoning, just a little pepper spice blend there. Maybe a little more black pepper. And now I'll stir that. And while this is all incorporating, I'll get another spoon out. Let it cool. That's rocking and rolling. Finished. I'll show you. And again, I'm going to grab my ladle, which is right here, and just letting everyone know, certainly you can eat soup as an appetizer, or you can just fill a bowl of yummy, go sit by the couch on a cold day with your favorite movie or watching a Netflix series. But if you like toast, and you like especially a toasted grilled cheese sandwich, this is the perfect meal. The texture, the color, the creaminess of this, so, so good. Pair it with your favorite grilled cheese sandwich. Pair it with any sandwich. This is tomato basil bisque. Thank you for watching. The recipe is going to be in the description down below, and we'll see you next in Dwayne and Nydia's kitchen. Thank you.